Hi, this is Vanshika Chauhan and I am working as a legal intern with Lexis & Company, and today I'll be talking about the Model Tenancy Act. So after releasing a draft in 2019, the Union Cabinet finally passed the Model Tenancy Act last week, which aims to streamline the process of renting property in India and also to aid the rent economy in the real estate sector. Further, the law seeks to balance out the renters and the tenants' interest who have enjoyed protection against eviction and rent hikes under laws which were drafted decades ago, and mostly with the intent to prevent exploitation of the tenants by the landlords. Now, the MTA or the Model Tenancy Act was a government's effort to enable the institutionalization of the rental housing by gradually shifting it to the formal market. In order to minimize the petty disputes, the Act also mandates the requirement of a written agreement to be submitted to the concerned district rental authority, which means that the rent and the duration of tenancy will be fixed mutually between the owner and the tenant in the written agreement. Also, it produces or it provides a 3 months notice to tenants for a hike of rental money in order to ensure that the landowners are able to extract the market price for their properties, also with ensuring that the tenants get through the notice or get enough time with the notice to make adequate arrangements in the best of their interest. So the Act puts a cap on the security deposits for residential properties, making sure that the tenants are not forced to pay hefty amounts at the start of the tenancy, as it is a norm in various large cities such as Mumbai, Bangalore. Also, as per the Act, only 2 months rent can be taken as advance for residential properties, whereas the current norm in metro cities ranges from 5 up to 12 months. According to the Act, if the tenant fails to vacate the premises let out on rent in accordance with the tenancy agreement, he or she will be liable to pay the landlord twice the monthly rent for the first 2 months and then 4 times till the latter continues to occupy the said premises. Now, in a case of a dispute, the Act holds a 3-tier structure for the resolution of that dispute. If a dispute emerges between the owner and the tenant, then they will have to first approach the rent authority. If any parties agreed with the decision of the rent authority, then they have to approach the rent court. And if they are still not satisfied with the decision of the rent court, then they can approach the rent tribunal. Now, the Act says that no landlord or property manager can withdraw any essential supply to the premises occupied by the tenant in the event of a dispute or any other pretext. They have to provide a 24-hour notice also to the tenant before undertaking any repair work that may disrupt the utilities supply. Further, the tenant will not carry out any structural change or erect any permanent structure in the premises let out on rent without the written consent of the landowner. So, coming to the question that what was the need of this law? So, as per the 2011 consensus, only 21 million or 20% of urban houses were given out at rent. The conservative estimate states that as many as 1 crore houses were left vacant for various reasons. But a key dampener for the landowner and the tenant was that there was no sound mechanism to resolve tenant landlord conflicts apart from a really expensive protracted route of filing a civil lawsuit. So the property owners also found it nearly impossible to evict tenants, which further created a negative view towards rent. So the Act tries to address how a renter or a landowner can legitimately increase the rent of the property without compromising the rights of the tenants. Also, the law only minimizes the possibility of dispute by clearly defining landlords and the tenants' responsibilities and obligations, but also puts in place a robust mechanism for grievance redressal to provide speedy resolution to disputes. Now, the only problem with this act is that land is a state subject and the central government has approved this act, but it is still upon the state governments to accept it and legislate it in their own states. Further, it is still a matter of choice for states and union territories to repeal or amend their existing acts, and as it amounts to a great deal of work on their part, it is still very doubtful that this act will be a success. Further, the law is applicable prospectively and will not affect existing tenancies, meaning that the owners who have not been able to evict the tenants due to the provisions of the previous law will get no relief under this law unless the state wherein their property is situated provides specifically for it.